Breathing exercises have been shown to trigger panic attacks, and journaling negative thoughts makes anxiety worse. So why on earth are therapists still prescribing them? In most cases, it's because they're working from older psychological theories, and they made sense at the time, but they're still being repeated as standard practice. A theory is simply somebody's attempt to explain what they thought was happening. Since then, neuroscience has given us a much clearer understanding of how the brain learns patterns like anxiety. And in several important ways, it points in a completely different direction. What we now know is that the brain becomes more efficient at whatever it keeps being asked to notice. If someone spends the day monitoring their breathing, tracking their thoughts and scanning their body for early warning signs, the nervous system treats those signals as relevant and keeps bringing them forward. Somewhere along the way, anxiety stopped being something people resolved and started being something people managed. Instead of interrupting the pattern, people were taught to track their triggers, label their emotions, scan their breathing, journal their thoughts, and monitor their nervous system very carefully. People are doing so much tracking and labeling and analysing, and I've seen research departments do less work. And people are doing exactly what they were told to do. The problem is that attention trains detection. So the brain gets better at finding whatever you keep checking for. You can see the same pattern in other areas once you know what to look for. People who monitor their sleep closely often end up sleeping worse. People who monitor their pain closely usually experience stronger pain. People who become very interested in their heart rarely become less aware of their heart rate. Anxiety behaves in the same way. And we have been told that awareness is the first step to change. And that point is true. It helps us recognise that a pattern exists. What tends to happen next, though, is that recognition turns into repetition. People revisit the same thoughts, the same triggers, the same psychological sensation again and again, in the hope that understanding them better will make them disappear. But it doesn't work like that. What usually happens instead is that people become extremely knowledgeable about their anxiety. They know their triggers, what sets it off, how they feel, the bodily reaction that goes on with it. They sometimes have a theory of what started it all off. What they have not been shown is how to stop rehearsing the process that produces it. Understanding something and interrupting something are completely different. The brain changes through repetition. If a thought is activated repeatedly so it can be examined, tracked, or written down, the brain becomes quicker at producing it the next time. After a while, the anxiety starts to feel automatic, which people understandably interpret as evidence that something deeper must be wrong, when in reality, the system has simply had a lot of practice. Breathing techniques are a good example of how this catches people out. If somebody already feels anxious about their breathing, when they start concentrating on their breathing in order to calm down, they often feel more aware of every small change in rhythm. So instead of settling the system, that attention makes it more noticeable, which makes the anxiety feel worse. And journaling does exactly the same. If you constantly write down your negative thoughts, the brain becomes much more efficient at repeating those thoughts. You are telling your brain that these thoughts are very important and that you want to notice them and you want more of them. Many of the clients I see arrive already very well informed about their anxiety. They have done exactly what they were told to do. They've tracked it, analysed it, monitored it, and tried to understand where it came from. But what will actually change for them is not more insight. What changes is learning how to do something different. And once they learn how to do something different, the anxiety stops. There's some interesting work from Cambridge professor Michael Anderson showing that it's possible to make a thought less accessible in the brain over time by reducing how often it's activated. That fits very neatly with what most clinicians eventually notice if they watch anxiety patterns long enough. When something stops being rehearsed, it stops showing up as often. At that point, the question shifts slightly. Instead of asking why the anxiety is there, it's more to notice how often our brain is producing those negative thoughts, those negative feelings, and to look at what we can think instead. Because becoming very good at describing anxiety is not the same thing as becoming free of it. To become free of it, we need to recognize the pattern, figure out what we want to do instead, and install that as an automatic response. And that's exactly what the delete method does. It deletes that negative loop of thinking. If you want to get rid of anxiety, or you are a hypnotherapist that wants more effective ways of dealing with clients with overthinking or anxiety, then there are links below in the description.